Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
It feels so wonderful to be back on the Bima with you, Cantor Steinberg.
And you, Rabbi Alfie.
It has been entirely too long. Now, I don't know about you, but I am already thinking about the high holidays.
Yes.
Which is about a month away, which makes me think of our opening song for tonight. On page 645, Lo alecha hamlacha ligmor. It is not your duty to complete the work, but neither are you free to engage in it. For those of you who don't understand my little joke, that's because it's about this time of year that Cantor Steinberg and I start actively having nervous breakdowns.
Nah.
As the rest of you enjoy the end of summer, all we can think about is the high holidays. So let's get into the mood of understanding that not everything in the world has to be perfect, not everything is on our shoulders, but we still have the opportunity and the obligation to do what we can to make it a better place. Please join us on page 645, Lo alecha hamlacha ligmor.
Lo alecha hamlacha ligmor, lo alecha ligmor. Lo alecha hamlacha ligmor, lo alecha ligmor, velo ata ben chori leibatel mimena, velo ata ben chori, velo ata ben chori leibatel mimena. Velo ata ben chorim, lo alecha hamlacha ligmor, lo alecha ligmor, lo alecha hamlacha ligmor, lo alecha ligmor.
When we come together on a Friday night to worship together, each of us is coming from a different place, a different experience, a different type of week. And many of us also don't know each other. And so in order for us to transform this room into a Keilat Kodesh, a holy community, rather than a bunch of people sitting and reading from the same book, we need to know who each other is. So let's take a moment or two to get up and to introduce ourselves to at least 2 or 3 people we didn't know when we came in tonight. So the Sabbath bride is desperately waiting outside in the hot sun, waiting for us to sing Lecha Dodi and to welcome her into our midst. So we continue together in our Sidurim and our prayer books on page 138 with Lecha Dodi, and we'll be singing verses 1 and 9.
Lecha Dodi likrat kala Pnei Shabbat Mekabela Lecha Dodi likrat kala Pnei Shabbat Mekabela Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad Mishmi alo el ha'meichad Adonai echad u'shemo echad B'shem u'tiferet v'litehila Lecha Dodi likrat kala Pnei Shabbat mekabela Lecha Dodi likrat kala Pnei Shabbat mekabela Boi v'shalom materet bala Gam b'simcha u'tehola Tochem unei am sekula Boi chala Lecha Dodi likrat kala Pnei Shabbat mekabela Lecha Dodi likrat kala Pnei Shabbat mekabela.
It is so wonderful to be able to come back onto the bima and to be able to celebrate a simcha in the congregation, a joyous occasion of calling one of our youth in our community to the bima to take his place as an adult. And in honor of William becoming a bar mitzvah this weekend, I'd like to invite up William and his parents, Janice and Jonathan, to do us the honor of lighting the Shabbat candles. The blessing for the candles can be found on page 120, but first we continue with Shalom Aleichem on page 142.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Melech, Malachei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boker l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech, Malachei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Amen.
As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us.
As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we in our own day be among those who kindle light.
Amen. Baruchuni l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech, Malachei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Seichem l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech, Malachei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
We rise for the Barchu on page 146.
Barku et Adonai hamevorach. Baruch Adonai hamevorach le'olam va'ed.
We continue together on the top of page 149. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'ma'ariv aramim.
Ahavat olam beit Yisrael, amcha ahavta. Torah u'mitzvot, chukim u'mishpatim, otanu limadeta. Al kein Adonai Eloheinu, b'shochveinu v'kumeinu, natziach b'chukecha, v'nismach b'divrei Toratecha, u'b'mitzvotecha, le'olam va'ed. Ki hein chayenu ve'orech yameinu, uvahem neged yomam v'layla. Baruch atah Adonai Ohev Amo Yisrael. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol me'odecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavcha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam b'shivtecha v'veitecha u'v'lechtecha v'derech u'shoftecha u'fumecha u'kshartam le'ot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot bein einecha u'chtabtam al mezuzot beitecha ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. אמן.
We continue together on the bottom of page 157. In a world torn by violence and pain, a world far from wholeness and peace, give us the courage to say, Adonai, there is one God in heaven and earth. The high heavens declare your glory. May earth reveal your justice and love. From bondage in Egypt we were delivered. At Sinai we bound ourselves to your way. Inspired by prophets and instructed by sages, time and again we overcame oppressive forces. Though our failings are many and our faults are great, it has been our glory to bear witness to our God, keeping alive in dark ages your vision of a world redeemed. Let us continue to work for the day when the nations will be one and at peace. Then shall we rejoice as Israel did, singing on the shores of the sea.
מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות אוסף אליהם, נורא תהילות אוסף אליהם. Won't you help me sing these songs of freedom? They're all I ever can. Redemption song. Malakutecha ro'u banecha bokei hayam lifnei Moshe u'Miriam. Ze Eli ve'ameru Adonai yimlok le'olam va'ed. Won't you help me sing these songs of freedom? They're all I ever had. Redemption song, redemption song, redemption song. ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו. ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל.
We continue with the Hashkivenu on page 161. And as we ask God for protection and for a shelter of peace, I'm mindful that before I came in this evening, I read a disturbing piece in the news that El Dorado County, I don't know if it's their Board of Supervisors or their county supervisors, voted to make July Christian, I think it's Christian Identity Month for the entire county. And they said it's because this is a nation that was founded by and for Christians. It was I think they forgot about all the Native American people who were actually here first. But it was a disturbing article. It's not something you expect to happen next door to where you live, because El Dorado County is just right next door to us. For so many of us, we have found that peace and protection, a shelter from God, has come not when we seek to build walls between us, but when we seek to find God in the face of the people who are not like us, who don't believe the same as us, that we find God's protection when we find peace and friendship in the comfort of our neighbors. And so as we offer this prayer tonight, let's truly pray for love and understanding, not just for those people that we know, but for the ones that we do not know yet, and hopefully ones that someday we'll be able to call friends. Page 161. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up, waiting to do your will. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom, aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim. It's my pleasure to invite up our B'nai Mitzvah students who are with us on this Shabbat to come and join us.
And adults.
Oh, well, our B'nai Mitzvah students includes the adults. So if you're in the adult B'nai Mitzvah program, please come up and join us as well as we continue with Vishamru on page 162.
That's my favorite thing. That's not my favorite thing. Veshamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam ritolam beini uvein b'nei Yisrael oti le'olam Sheshet Yamim Asa Adonai Asa Adonai Et HaShamayim Ve'et Haaretz Uvayom HaShvi'i Shavat Vayinafash Veshamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam britolam.
Please rise for the tefillah on page 164.
continue praying privately from page 172 through 180, either standing or sitting, as is your custom.
Adonai Tzuri, Adonai Tzuri v'goali, Adonai Tzuri, Adonai Tzuri v'goali. Go inside your heart, just be. Go inside your heart and see what it wants, what it needs, what it yearns when you breathe. Go inside your heart and see. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be kind, be true. May they be acceptable to you, oh my rock and my redeemer. You leratzon nimrefi v'hegyon libi. You
thoughts and our prayers now turn towards those in our lives who are in need of a refuah shlema, a healing of body, a healing of spirit. The words for the prayer can be found on the inside of your Shabbat flyers.
Mi sheberach avoteinu Avraham, Yitzchak v'Yaakov Mi sheberach imotenu Sarah, Rivka, Leah, v'Rachel. May the one who blessed our mothers, may the one who blessed our fathers, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, and bless us as well. Bless us with the power of your healing. Bless us with the power of your hope. May our hearts be filled with understanding and strengthened by the power of your love. Bless us with the vision for tomorrow. Help us to reach out to those in pain. May the warmth of friendship ease our sorrow. Give us courage, give us faith, show us the way. Mi sheberach avoteinu, mi sheberach imotenu. Hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, and bless us as well.
So I should warn you, you should settle in your seats, get a little comfy. I haven't given a drosh in 6 weeks, and I have a lot to say. In this week's Torah portion, towards the beginning of the book of Deuteronomy in Parashat Ekev, we continue to hear from Moses as he prepares the Israelites for the time when they will live in the land of Israel. In this portion, we are reminded of the difficulties of wandering in the desert for 40 years and the lessons that we were supposed to learn from that time. We endured the hardships of hunger and then the gift of manna so we would understand that human beings do not live on bread alone, hopefully cultivating within us a sense of compassion for those who will someday need our help, just as we needed help during our time in the wilderness. Moses also goes on to warn us against arrogance, that once we are sovereign on our land, he tells us we should not think that it is because we are so great that we were able to defeat our enemies, but it was only because of the Holy One fulfilling the covenant that was made with our ancestors. He also reminds us of our past acts of disloyalty, like building the golden calf, rebelling at Kadesh Barnea, and how Moses had to intervene on our behalf several times in order for God to forgive us. And then Moses says this, "Behold, the heaven and the heaven of the heavens is the eternal your God's, the earth also, with all that is in it. Only the eternal took delight in your ancestors to love them, and God chose their seed after them, you above all people, as it is this day. Circumcise, therefore, the foreskin of your heart, and be no more stiff-necked." Now, because of Genesis chapter 17, we are familiar with the idea of circumcising the foreskin of another piece of anatomy as a sign of a covenant with God and the Jewish people. But circumcising our hearts? That is something different altogether. Luckily, the Torah is not talking about a literal cutting away of the heart, but a metaphorical one. We are being commanded not to be hard-hearted and stubborn. We are being told that our attitude matters. We are also being told that the place of privilege that we hold is not because we did anything to deserve it, but simply by God's grace. It is reminiscent, this idea of circumcising your heart, of Pharaoh's sin, of hardening his heart against the Israelites. We are being told that when we are the ones in power, that we must not behave as Pharaoh did. We understand a bit more of what is meant by circumcising our hearts, because in the very next verse we are told, "For the eternal your God is God of gods, the Lord of lords, a great God, mighty and awesome, which favors no person, nor takes bribes." If God does not show favoritism or take bribes, then it is clear that our rulers are not allowed to either. Just as God is the God of all people, when we have authority in the land of Israel, we too should favor no person, nor take any bribes, but to show that same sense of mercy and justice. The concept of circumcising one's heart appears in 3 different places in the Bible. Twice in Deuteronomy and once in Jeremiah, we are commanded to have a circumcised heart. We are told that we must cut away the thickening around the heart so that we can love God, and loving God is directly equated with acting with compassion and humility towards others. Whenever something is repeated in the Bible, it's a reminder that this idea is not something that comes easily to humans, and it is a sign of it being an important value. It is easy to be hard-hearted, to be judgmental, to be cold towards others. It is easy to be frustrated with people or politics and to just want to close your heart and your thoughts to things you feel like you have no control over. I know because this is something I have been wrestling with because of the actions of the current Israeli government has been engaging in these many, many months. It is so much easier to turn away from the corruption and the hatefulness that is coming out of that government than to feel heartbroken and helpless. It is a government that has hardened its heart against so many people who live in the land of Israel, as well as against the Jews of the diaspora. Like many American Jews, I feel hopeless and frustrated, feeling like there's little that I can do to stop Israel's self-destructive trajectory. But on the other hand, because when you're Jewish, there's always another hand, I am also aware of the hundreds of thousands of Israelis who have been coming out week after week, month after month, desperately trying to save their democracy through the courts and through the Knesset, as well as on the streets. The political situation in Israel is complicated. So I'm going to quote Rabbi Joseph Mesler, who has written an excellent and concise explanation of what is happening currently. Rabbi Mesler explains that in the United States, we have 50 states plus territories that each have their own state legislature and judiciary. In addition, we have 3 branches of government: executive, legislative, and judiciary, that all have checks and balances on each other. We have a constitution that guarantees this. Israel, however, is such a small country that there are no states. There's only one federal government. There's only the federal government that controls everything. In addition, they only have 2 branches of government, like Parliament in Europe, and no constitution, but instead a set of basic laws. The executive and legislative branches are combined, making the Speaker of the House, therefore, essentially also the Prime Minister. Therefore, the only check on the Prime Minister and on his party, who control the Knesset, or the combined executive legislative branch, is the Israeli Supreme Court. The current coalition was elected by the slimmest majority after 4 failed elections in 4 years, and is composed of the most radical right-wing Israelis. And despite pressure from America and their own citizens, they just last week passed a law saying that the Supreme Court has no check on their power, making them, the Prime Minister and his coalition, completely and solely in charge. The ultra-Orthodox who control the government through Bibi Netanyahu will now pass laws cementing yeshiva students' exemption from the service, funneling money into yeshivas rather than into the larger education system, doubling the number of settlers in disputed territories, as well as formally annexing what is known as Judea and Samaria, or the West Bank. They are also using the police to further settler claims and often use violence against the 3 million Palestinians, allowing the settlers to use violence against the 3 million Palestinians who live in the West Bank. As an American Jew of a certain age, I have been raised to be hesitant to ever engage in any public criticism of Israel. For most of Israel's history, American Jews have been told to hold our criticism to ourselves, that because we don't live there and we and our children are not in the military, that we should not have an opinion on what happens in Israel, but rather we should keep quiet and simply support whatever government is elected. And for too long, American Jews have mostly been silent. But for many of us, the imperative of Kol Yisrael Arvim Zeh V'Zeh, all Jews are responsible one for the other, demands of us and our sense of basic decency to speak out. Because for the Jewish people, our covenants are made not just with one generation, but with the ones who came before us and the ones who come after us. If we let democracy die in Israel, we have forsaken the generations that established and fought for the modern state, and we will have squandered our children's and grandchildren's inheritance in Israel. Israel was not established just for the Jews who lived there, but for all of the Jewish people. And if you don't believe me, take a look at their Declaration of Independence. I know that I wish that the current government of Israel was much more familiar with it. We have reached a point where we finally understand that to be silent at the continued outrageous acts of this government is to be complicit with it. And like many rabbis of all denominations, I can no longer be silent. I cannot turn my back. I cannot harden my heart. There is too much at risk. Last week, after the Knesset passed a law limiting the authority of the Supreme Court in what was a shameless and dangerous power grab, and what might end up being a fatal blow to Israel's democracy, Rabbi Messler asked our Israeli colleagues what they would like for us to share with our congregants. I want to share with you now the responses from 4 of these rabbis. Rabbi Chaim Shalom, a congregational rabbi in Jerusalem, said, "I want you to talk about hope. I want you to talk about love. I want you to talk about how hard it is to see a country one loves choose a dangerous path of self-harm. I want you to make clear that democracy is not just the tiny, thin majority enforcing its will on the minority, and that is true wherever we are. There are universal moral truths which we cannot turn our backs on. We turn to each other as fellow members of the people of Israel to remind each other of the oneness of creation. We are all in this together. Whenever one part of the human family falls, it affects us all. And so, yes, we all have a piece in this tragic outcome, but not equally." He goes on to say that the people who will suffer the most are those who are already the weakest. Palestinians, LGBTQ Israelis, women, the poor, the disadvantaged. These are the people, he says, who have lost their protection today. Democracy is not just by the people or of the people. It must also be for the people, all the people. This great injustice is part of a long abandonment of universal values which the people of Israel have allowed to happen for far too long. This loss of democracy for Israelis is the natural end of our giving up on a democracy when we became comfortable with a never-ending occupation. Thank you for loving us. We love you, and we won't stop fighting for this country. Rabbi Rinat Safania, who serves a congregation in Shoham, said, "As you know, our country is burning. It is a sad and difficult afternoon here. Yet the protests brought many indifferent people out of the house to show how important this country is to them and how unwilling they are to give up democracy, civil rights, and matters of religion and state. We really hope that this protest will also lead people to choose by their feet and join the liberal movements like the Reform movement. We have a lot of work to do in all fields, and the road is long. The hope is 2,000 years old, and it does not end with one decision or another. There is a large movement of protest here, and alongside it, a large movement of people who want to continue holding hands despite all the differences. We, as the Reform movement and communities, are here to hold onto hope even when darkness seems to be falling." Rabbi Leora Ezrahi Vered, who lives in Ramat Yishai, and some of you may know her mother, Rabbi Nama Kelman, who has been here on many occasions because she and her husbands are cousins with Lisa and Rob Wiener and Lisa Brodke. Almost mixed up their names there. She has this to say: as hard as this is to see and watch from afar, and the reality is certainly very, very concerning, there are also huge waves of people working for a better Israel, and that this is not the end, but a pit that we can climb out of, like Yosef, like all those who are struggling. We need friendship and solidarity more than ever. The rabbis and members of the Reform movement in Israel are frontline activists. And lastly, Rabbi Stacy Blank, who is the Director of Education and Leadership Development at the World Union of Progressive Judaism, which is headquartered in Jerusalem. She says, do not despair. Continue to educate ourselves and our communities about the issues from both sides, to be leaders in dialogue, to delve into all of Israel is responsible one for the other, to talk about the dangers of sinat chinam, baseless hatred. Ask what is Reform and Progressive Zionism? How can we be supportive of Israel and supportive of Reform Progressive Zionist values? Ask how important, or talk about how important every single person is to the success of Israel, both those of us who live here and those who live elsewhere. And lastly, she says, Od lo avda tikvatenu liyot am chofshi be'artzenu. Our hope is not lost to be a free people in our own land. In 1877, Naftali Hertz Imbar wrote those words that Rabbi Blank quoted. Ve'od lo avda tikvatenu liyot am chofshi be'artzenu. Our hope is not lost to be a free people in our own land. That is what is causing hundreds of thousands of Israelis to demonstrate and to march, to be free in their land. So we must do more than pray for Israel right now. We must contact the Israeli consulate in San Francisco and let them know how upset and angry we are at the attack on democracy. We must demand that the settlers in the West Bank who engage in what are essentially pogroms to be held accountable, legally accountable for their violence. We must caution those in Israel of the lasting damage that will be done by putting Orthodox Jews above all other Jews. And we can also help build up Israel by helping support Reform communities in Israel, like we do with Congregation Kodesh V'chol, as well as supporting the Reform movement in Israel as a whole, helping them fight for the values that are so important to us. But what we cannot do, what we cannot afford to do, is to harden our hearts against what is happening there. We cannot turn and walk away. We cannot pretend that what is happening there does not also affect us here. Shabbat Shalom. It's my pleasure to invite up Davida Levin Robinson, our VP of Membership, for some Shabbat greetings and announcements.
Rabbi, thank you for those wire words. I know all of us have missed you over the summer, and we look forward to hearing more, especially as the high holiday season's coming up. And Shabbat Shalom to everybody who's attending tonight. I personally have taken a hiatus over the summer, and when I walked in here tonight, I realized just how much I miss this place, and seeing all my friends who've become like family, and just seeing all the smiles on the faces. And it's been nice to even meet some new members or possible new members tonight. So welcome back for many of you. There is going to be an Oneg after services tonight, hosted by the B'nai Mitzvah class in honor of William Aaron. And welcome to William Aaron's family and close friends that are here. Other announcements is there is Torah study tomorrow, which is going to be hybrid at 9:30 a.m. in the morning in the library and on Zoom. Then 10:30 is the bar mitzvah of William Aaron here in the sanctuary. At 10:30 a.m. there's mini minyan for about 1 to 5 year olds that is here on the campus. And the gift shop is going to be starting to be open on a more regular basis, starting on Tuesday, August 8th, from 2 to 5 p.m. And you can start thinking about high holiday shopping. And let's see what else. Havdalah in the Hood, which has been a huge, huge success this summer. Membership committee has put a lot of work into this, and all the hosts and co-hosts. There is still 3 more Saturdays left after this Saturday. I think, well, actually, if you include this one, maybe it's 4. And there are adult-only ones, some family ones, some families with young children, and there is also one for 20s and 30s. And after the service, if you're interested in how to sign up for them, and if you have any interest, you can come find me or Laurel Hollis, who's in the black and white shirt, who's raising her hand. You are, what? Oh my gosh. That's why we were co-chairs for membership for many years. It's also her birthday. Happy birthday, Laurel. There is much more information out there if you visit the CBI website and the Hadashot. I also wanted to thank Cantor Steinberg for her beautiful singing voice and for William Aaron to being up on the bima tonight as he gets ready for tomorrow. So William, are you ready? Are you ready to rumble? Okay. He's going to introduce all his family and his dear friends that are here.
Family, please stand. I have my mother, Janice, my father, Jonathan, and my stepmother, Chris. We got family, friends, Ben and Coney. My grandparents, Elizabeth and Keith. Cousins, Lucas and Andy. My Uncle Mike. My grandparents, Gary and Fran. My Uncle David and Aunt Jamie. My cousins, Nash and Julia. Great Uncle Mark. Great Aunt Joyce. And my cousin, Rachel.
Shabbat Shalom.
Bruchim Habayim.
Good job.
Oh, please be seated.
Thank you, William. And lastly, before the end of the service and our beautiful oneg, if I could have all board members, past presidents, and committee chairs stand up and introduce yourself.
I'm Steve Orcan, I'm a past president.
Dale Kassler, past president.
I'm getting my steps in.
I'm Judy Emick Leatherwood. I'm chair of the music committee and choir wrangler and the scheduler of people to chant Torah.
And you guys know me, I'm the VP of membership, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you, Davida. Thank you, Davida. We continue now with our concluding prayers, beginning with the Aleinu, which can be found on the bottom half of page 586. It's my pleasure to invite back up all of our youth and adult B'nai Mitzvah students to please join us on the bima. Please rise. And adults, youth and adult B'nai Mitzvah students.
Aleinu leshabeach la'adon hakol, latet kedula leotzer breshit, shelo asanu kegoyei haratzot, velo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkeinu kahem, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד הארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגובה מרומים. הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום והשבות אל לבבך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת אין עוד. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
Please be seated.
Our thoughts now turn to loved ones who are no longer with us. And thankfully, there are no recent passings in our congregation. Really a joyous moment. However, many who are here tonight are here to remember loved ones who passed away at this time in years past. And we remember those loved ones today. We remember Adeline Akana Williams, Beatrice Baer, Seymour Beck, Ellen Berkovich, Ernst Berghausen, Lazarus Bloomberg, Rosalind Rosen, Linda Brubaker, Edith Dubb, Franklin Dudley, Irving Dwash, Myrna Ferguson, Seymour Friedman, Norma Garson, E. Heidi Greenstein, Rosie Hyman, Elaine Cantor, Jay Kaufman, Bernard Kirschbrown, Arthur Cotlin, Gertrude Cotlin, Stanley Cronick, Emily Landy, Harold Lappin, Adeline Lerner, Renee Megrum, Albert Martin, Ken Morris, Marla Mosbaugh, Leon Pallas, Leonora Resnick, Lena Rudin, Emmanuel Schwab, Jack Schwab, Randy Shepard, Joan Sibner, Lee Small, Myron Wachholder, Fanny Weedman, and Frank Weiner. If there are any names of loved ones that anyone would like to add to the Kaddish list tonight, please feel free to call those names aloud as my gaze meets yours. If you were saying Kaddish for a loved one this evening, I'd like to invite you to please rise. For the congregation to please join me in these words of comfort. Hamakom yenechem etchem betok sha'ar of Leid Zion v'Yushalayim. May God comfort you among the mourners of Zion and Jerusalem. We rise as a community to offer comfort to those who grieve as we continue together on page 598 with the Mourners Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei rabbah, be'alma divra chirute v'yamlich malchute, v'chaye chon uv'yomei chon uv'chaye d'chol beit Yisrael, ba'gala uv'izman kari v'imru amen. Yehe shmei rabbah mevarach le'olam umei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitba'ar v'yitraman v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shemei d'kudsha b'richu, Le'ela min kol birchata vishirata, tush bechata v'nechamata, damiran be'alma v'imru, amen. Yehi Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya, V'chaim Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael, V'imru Amen. Osei Shalom V'imramav, Hu Yaseh Shalom, Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael, V'imru Amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved. And let us say, Amen.
Amen.
What's our closing song? So, if there's one thing that I hope that you got from my drash tonight, it's that we should be partners with Israel. That the path forward, the path to peace, the path to democracy is by us working together. On page 652, we have our closing song, Aniva Atah. It was a song written after the Yom Kippur War by two young Israelis who were filled with hope for a future where each of us will work together for a better place.
אני ואתה נשנה את העולם. אני ואתה אז יבואו כבר כולם. אמרו את זה קודם, לפניי זה לא משנה. אני ואתה נשנה העולם. אני ואתה ננסה מההתחלה. יהיה לנו רע, אין דבר, זה לא נורא. אמרו את זה קודם, לפניי זה לא משנה. אני ואתה נשנה את העולם.
We conclude the service with the Kiddush and the Motzi. The Kiddush can be found on page 123. Do you want to guess on if it's wine or grape juice? You have to drink the whole thing no matter what.
No. No, you don't. Like mother and father. Are you ready?
It's right here. Of course you're ready.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotov v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu zikaron lema'aseh bereshit ki hu yom tehillah lemikra kodesh zecher letziat mitzrayim kivanu v'charta v'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim v'shabbat kodeshecha ve'ahava uvratzon hinkaltanu Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh hashabbat. Amen. L'chaim u'shalom. Thirsty.
Glad it's grape juice.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can have all of it if you want.
Oh.
What does it say? What does it say?
Do we have an actual challah today? Okay. So So during COVID, when we didn't do the motzi every week, Dean and Ryan would surprise us with things underneath the challah cover. This is a mug that I had indicated that I wanted. It says, "Be careful or you will end up in my sermon." Ryan, be careful. But do we have an actual? Okay, he's getting the actual challah. I'm going to be using this at home.
You know, not only did he put a scarf in there, but he braided it.
Yes, to make it look the right shape. I did not see that coming.
No, I did not either, but boy, is he talented.
Yeah,
Did you do this or he did? No.
that was Dean. Okay.
Does anyone in the room have a challah?
In my purse. Let me go grab it. There's the challah.
I
Ooh.
don't believe that that's a challah.
It looks too flat. I know, it's really flat. Oh, and it's nice and cold.
It's the stunt
So for
challah.
those of you who have not been with us since COVID, we no longer, I think he got this from the freezer. We no longer eat the challah that we touch for the blessing. There is a beautiful, not frozen, fresh challah that is sliced up and waiting for you with the oneg after the service. This is for blessing purposes only.
You want to help? Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Shabbat shalom v'tevon.
Please join us for the oneg.